The book I'm going to talk about is called No More Teaching a Letter a Week. It is written by Rebecca McKay and Dr. William H. Teal. It is part of a series published by Heinemann called Not This, But That. The series is edited by Ellen Oliver Keene and Nell K. Duke. No More Teaching a Letter a Week is focused on best practices for introducing letters and sounds to young children. So it's focused on the pre-kindergarten and kindergarten age range child, best for educators who are working with students at that age. They spend part of the book discussing the research around how children learn letters, how learning letters is related to phonological awareness, what are some of the best ideas related to how students learn letters, and some of the best practices. And their conclusion essentially is that introducing one letter a week to students is an isolating practice, that it doesn't kind of draw it all together so that students can put those letters and sounds together as making words and kind of make that connection. They do say that they didn't identify one best practice for teaching letters and introducing letters, but that there are lots of ways to do it, and that their best recommendation is to immerse students in a print-rich environment, in an environment where you are constantly talking about letters, all of the letters, and introducing them multiple times a day, during the week, and multiple times throughout the year. So they have one section or chapter on the research, and then another section or chapter is on some best practices that you can use to introduce and teach letters to young children that are not teaching a letter a week. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time sharing some of the ideas that I've used in the classroom that go right along with things that Rebecca McKay mentions in the book that are some best practices for creating a print-rich environment and introducing letters and their sounds to young children. So one of the things that she talks about as far as having a print-rich environment is when you walk into an early childhood classroom, there is typically print everywhere. So making sure that your print is meaningful and that you're using the print that is in the classroom. And one way to do that would be to have your daily message. So I have a daily message up here. I used two different colors. I used red and black. The red is for the parts of the message that stay the same. They're not going to change, at least for an unspecified amount of time. It might be weeks that we stay with this same format. So the kids get the predictability. They start to recognize those words. They start to recognize the letters. They're hearing the sounds, same ones all the time. The things in the message that change are the day of the week. It says today is Wednesday, so Wednesday's going to change. We have music today, so maybe the activity is going to change for that day. And then what snack is. It says apples, but it could be anything. Another way is to have lists around the classroom, and you can have teacher-generated lists that the students contribute to, or student-generated lists that the students contribute to. So this is a teacher-generated one. Today for lunch, I will have hot or cold lunch. And again, if you have the text the same, the students will begin to recognize those letters. They'll recognize the sounds that the letters make as you talk about them. There would typically be somebody who might be there to help them answer that question. They're going to use the name cards that you're going to have available for students, and that will be available for lots of different activities all over the classroom. But on a typical day, they would find their name card, and then they would decide, I'm going to have hot lunch today, or I'm going to have cold lunch, and then they're going to put it on the chart. For real young kids, I always start with a picture and their name, because they're going to recognize their picture. And they might recognize the first letter of their name, but maybe not everything. And you might have 5 kids whose names start with the letter A. So having their picture there helps. As they progress through the year, I usually take the picture away. It's just their name. They have to recognize that. For some students, I'll start doing last names, and they'll have to just find their last name, because there's a whole nother set of letters that they are introduced to that way. One of the things that she talked about was labeling all the objects in your classroom, and that's considered very best practices, especially at the early childhood age. Having labels on toys, on bins, so that kids know where to put things away, but they begin to associate those words with the pictures of the toys and the toys that go in the bin. having their names on their cubbies and their desks, having pictures for doors on the classroom, or a word and a picture for the table, just everything labeled to show them that print has meaning and what it goes with. The last thing that I'm going to share with you are the class-made books. She talked about making books with your students and leaving them out for them to look at. So this was one that I made ages ago, and it says, "Can you build your name?" So we had them figure out how many letters they had in their name, and then we took a picture of them building blocks for as many letters, and then they wrote their name. So we had a model for some of the kids, and then other kids wrote their name themselves. And then the other thing we did was we created alphabet books. So we would find things in the classroom that went with that letter, or kids, that's another thing, iguana, in the classroom that went with that letter. And these would be based on lists that we would generate with the students. So we would create a list. It would take, a week or two to generate a list of objects that went with each letter. And then we would find those objects in the classroom, take a digital picture of them, make a book. The students got those books to take home, and we kept one in the classroom. And that was usually a culminating activity at the end of the year, but we had been talking about letters all year long. So those are some ideas that I love that go with the ideas discussed in the book that kind of pull you away from teaching a letter a week. Thanks.